Hello, this is Dr. Sue Ramlow, and it's been a little while since I made a video about collecting Q sorts online, so I thought it was time to update what I have here on YouTube. Um, if you like these videos, please like them on YouTube and follow me. It helps other people find these videos. So here I have started off on Sean Banaszak's page, and if you can see, right, it has the EQ web sort, the configurator, right, along with Cade and KenQ, right? So I've already clicked on EQ web sort. It's been a couple of months since the last time I set up a Q study online. So usually what I like to do is always start here on his page to make sure that I'm downloading the most up-to-date version of what we have. So here we have two choices. One is no Google. That's if you're going to use Netlify for hosting as well as data collection, right? And then this is the option that I've used since I started collecting Q data online, which is where I use Firebase as my database and Netlify as my host for my web page. So I'm going to download this link, or from this link. It's going to provide a zipped file here eventually. And I could put this anywhere. I could download it anywhere. So I could just download it right here in my downloads. Um, I'm a little weird, but I like to download things in my download folder because it helps me keep track of them, and so I can delete things. So it's still downloading. You can see I've downloaded a whole bunch of Q um, literature recently. So now we're done. So we're going to come here, and obviously this is a PC, not a Mac. And then I'm going to just right click on it, I think. There we go. And we have somewhere on here, oh, extract all. And I'm going to put it somewhere else eventually, but I'm just going to extract it right here in my download folder. So we'll wait for this to download. It's very, very exciting. Maybe I'll pause this for right now, maybe. All right, there we go. All right, so if we look, we can see that here is my EQ web sort with Google, right? If I go up, you'll see, right, there's my original download, and here is that, but this is actually inside that folder, and I'm going to just move it here into my studies folder. So it's about faculty views regarding attendance. Apparently my computer is feeling very zippy today. There we go. And for whatever reason, right, I like to change this just so that I know which of these folders I'm using. So I'm going to call it attendance, right? Just so I know that's what I'm going to do. Reuse, whoops. Can't complete, open another program. Oh, could be, oh. Oh, that's weird. Oh, because it's, oops. Let's close that. Try it again. All right, so, whoops. No idea. All right, we'll just cancel. That actually doesn't make sense because I don't have it open anywhere. We'll try it again. All right, we're just going to call it this then. All right, next up is to use basically our GUI interface, right, to help us set everything up. That's EQ Web Configurator. I have this downloaded on my computer, but again, I'm going to verify that I have the most recent version. So I'm just going to come down here. It's 7.0.0. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I have. So I'm going to open that up here. Maybe. There it is. I'll verify that it's the most recent one. Slowly but surely. There we go. So even though I've done a lot of these, I always click Novice, just because I'm always afraid that I'm going to forget something, right? And now I'm going to go to our basic setup, right? So the very first thing, right, it tells us about downloading and that there's an index file and a settings folder, right? All of this information. So we are going to go to the folder where that index.html is. So this might take a hot minute because, of course, I have it in a new folder from the last time I did this. So we'll go up. This is probably, well, I don't know what study that is. Nope, it's a STEM study. So I'm going to go into my articles. I have a lot of things. Ignore so many folders. So there's my attendance queue policy, right? I'm going to click this folder, select folder. Right? And then, right, it comes down here. And then I'm going to make sure that I have identified it, just because I tend to go through and make sure that everything seems to work okay before I get very far. All right. And so there we go. There's our start button. Right now it's set up as the default iPad use study. So we're not going to worry about that. We just want to make sure that we're off to a good start here. Ignore that. That showed a different study. So now we're going to come back over here, right? We've copied this. So now we're ready to just literally go down this nice little list here on the side. So we come down, we can have logos and all kinds of things. And I skip all of those things. I don't go for anything fancy. I just want it to work. If your university insists on having their logo or something, then I suppose you could do that. But so we're going to do the config file. We're going to open it. Right? So all we're doing is basically putting it into this configurator. And now, right, there are a bunch of explanations. Again, I'm going to do the Firebase, right? So I'm going to give my project a name, right? And because I'm going to do a subsequent one, right? I'm call it faculty attendance, right? It's Firebase. There's not a second Q sort. We're not sorting images instead of text statements, although that's a great option. I always want the presentation order of the statements to be random so that it replicates what happens when you give people an envelope full of little strips of paper or cards. And I go for all the default colors. Again, I'm not interested in being that fancy. I am going to have them sign in anonymously. I am going to have a consent page to my project because my IRB or ethics approval requires that. I'm not sure what that means, but I think it means the button, right? And now we have some other, right, colors for, right, the positive numbers and the neutral. This is mostly for their pre-sort, right? So we leave that as true. These, I, again, keep these pretty standard. I often allow unforced sorts, although when I did my study on academic freedom, it was very interesting that I had so many people go way off the grid. But alternatively, when I have not allowed unforced sorts, I've had some people who have not been able to complete their sort because they want to have 5 things under +5, but there's only 2 slots. So I usually allow for the unforced sorts. I do display the overload column warning, however, to kind of nudge them to go with the sort shape. And I always have them start with positive and then they go to negative. And then post sort, right? I definitely want those cards that are most salient, right? Those placements, I want them to comment on those. I could also have them do on the second most positive and second most negative. I don't typically do that, in part because I didn't do that when I was doing them in person. Display previous page navigation button so they could go back. Force participant to add comments before navigation. I always do that. Sometimes they just write, I don't want to comment, or no, or because. So, but I want them to at least think about writing something. And then I have survey options. So here, right, here is where I'm going to include the survey. And here are, right, some default ones. These are just the pre-setup for Sean Banasik's study. So I am going to pause us again while I delete these, and then we'll go and I'll open up my folder that has my list of questions and we'll set that all up. All right, so here we have my Excel spreadsheet. This is where I set everything up, right? My Q sample is in here along with the themes because I can randomize the statements and they don't have numbers for the participants. I now keep them in that order just because, right? Here's my grid for my statements, right? So here it is. I have 4s all the way across from +4 to -4. I have 36 statements. So that's literally how I decided that, right? So there you have it. And I have my questionnaire. So I usually write these questions out ahead of time, in part because it makes it easy for me to basically copy and paste for my IRB application. So my first question is, right, what your discipline area is. This is teaching discipline, right? So I'm going to come over to my EQ web sort. And, right, so all questions marked with an asterisk are required. So I leave that. I deleted all the others, right? And here, right, I can have different options. So I'm going to have these people write what their teaching discipline area is, right? And to make it easier, right, my label is always quite short, because when I download the spreadsheet with this information from CADE later on, it just makes it easier if it's something that makes sense. So discipline, right? The note is what they see. So, right, please enter your, right, I'll make it a little, right? So enter your teaching discipline area, right? Area, so science, engineering, education, right? Social work, whoops, etc. And then, right, I can have, oh, I don't remember what the placeholder is. We can come up here and look. There's usually some interesting things here that will help us out, right? We can do some HTML things. Notice that you can't use the ampersand character because of the HTML, right? So we have to avoid certain symbols because of that. Oh, I don't remember what placeholder is. I'm not going to limit their length. It's certainly not restricted to numbers. So then I'm going to add my item. And then I'm going to look at my next question. So I want to know their teaching status, if they're non-tenured track, tenured visiting, or adjunct. They could also be a graduate student, right? But I will let them, again, write that in. So I will choose my text answer, right? I want them to answer, right? And so, right, I'm just going to call it faculty. So this is their faculty type, right? And I will make this a question. What is your current teaching status, right? Limit the answer length, false. Sometimes people want to give you an explanation, and I am all for them giving me more information. It's not restricted to numbers. I'm going to add that. I tend to lean towards having them enter information. Sometimes you have to clean it up a little bit because somebody will say engineering and somebody else will say mechanical engineering, for instance. So, but I would rather have them describe what, right? So this is going to be the number of years, right? Years teaching at the college level. Limit answer length. No, I'm not even going to restrict to numbers again, because sometimes people like to provide explanations, and I don't want to keep them from doing that or get frustrated, right? And then, right, so I'm just going through these, right? So I have, do you take attendance? I can make this be a yes or no, or I can, again, leave it up to them, right? So I'm just going to call it take, right? So if they take attendance, do you take attendance in your classes? Because again, they might want to provide explanations besides yes or no, right? I do not restrict it to numbers or the maximum length, right? I want to give them every opportunity to provide information, right? So I'm going to call this one mandatory. Wish I could remember what the placeholder was. I again am not going to limit the length. I'm not going to limit to numbers. And then I want to know how they self-identify. Again, I could give them a list where they put in 1, 2, 3, or 4. But again, I like to allow them, right, to provide additional information if they want to. Right, and so that is the last of my questions, right? So now I have entered all of my questions. I can see them here, right? There is my information, right? I can make sure that I have them all here, right? And now I'm going to save this now reconfigured config file, and I'm going to save it in the settings folder. It's going to ask me if I want to write over it. The answer is yes. Next up is adding my statements. I have to load the next file. So this is the one that says statements. Really, Sean has made this so lovely. And if we look in here, we can see there are statements. These are the statements for his iPad example. So I'm going to delete all of them, right? And now I'm going to paste my statements. So I can paste them right from here. I'm not going to paste the numbers because it's going to automatically do that. So, right, I'll do a quick one more because I'm always so paranoid about having something misspelled. Oh, good. Oh, yes. All right, so we're good there. Go down. I'm going to copy all of these, even though they're in my spreadsheet, right? I can come in here and paste them. And they just paste as regular text, right? And now I can just save this with my statements, right? Replacing the existing file. Eventually. It says it already exists. You want to write it over? Yes. All right. Now we're ready to change our map file. We have 36 statements loaded. That's good because there's 36 statements. I'm going to pick my map. And now it wants to know my Q pattern, right? There's a default here. Remember that I have 4 for everything, right? So I can just... And notice that it keeps track. All right, all my statements are allocated. I don't have more, right, slots than I have statements or more statements than I have slots, right? I can have no coloring. I, again, just leave it as the default. I go and now I save my map. I'm going to replace the existing file. Now I'm going to go to language. Right, so here, this is where I'm going to do some specific things, like have the message about consent in here, right? I can include page breaks, right? So I can have BR backslash before and after, so that creates an open line between our text, right? So I can do all kinds of nice little HTML things. Recently, I was cleaning out my office and I found all of the stuff from when I took an HTML programming class in like 1996. I threw them all away. I can find anything I need now on the internet, right? So I can lay this out a number of different ways, right? I can't remember if I loaded the language file. Apparently not, because there was stuff to read first. So now I'm going to open the language. Right, and there it says research consent, and now, right, it has all of these things in it. There's some nice, right, there's our BRBR, right, or B, oh, that's bold, right? So this makes it bold and return, right? So now I'm going to go and open my consent page and paste it in here. I, again, pretty much don't do anything very fancy because I just don't. So hold on while I do all of that, and then we'll be back again. All right, so this is my consent form, but I've added all the HTML in here. Hopefully I didn't mess it up, right? Notice that even though, for instance, this has, right, in bold, it's not going to end up in bold, right? Like these, right, have a return, and that's given in Word, but not in HTML. So this should make everything work out okay. So these are just making spaces. This is making that part bold, right? This is making this bold. This is making it italicized, right? I don't have to add this. This is all part of my invitation. Oop. Oh. All right. And now it is so wonderful because Sean has video options at each stage. So I'm just going to copy this with the HTML in it. I'm going to come in over here, right? I'm going to delete all of this. Hopefully that works. I'll find out when I test drive it. Right. Here, right, I can, right? So I'm just going to copy this again and put it here. It's okay that it's in two places, right? It's going to say agree, right? And 18 or over, because that also makes my IRB happy. Not that I'm going to have any university faculty who are under 18. Right? I'm going to scroll down some more, right? So here are some things, right? They're basically default things that I don't mess around with. Here is the landing screen, right? So again, I could paste my same message, or oops, I guess that was what I did last time. Right? So I could just copy and paste this again. Never sure what quite to put here, but that's my welcome message. Right? There's my welcome, right? Start and help, right? So they are going to sign in anonymously, so most of this stuff doesn't matter, right? Here we have agree and disagree, right? This is the pre-sort screen, right? So I usually actually make this like me or like my view, right? No strong feelings or neutral. And then this one, unlike my view. Again, this is the initial pre-sort, right? Tells you how to get there, that you can use the numbers. So I don't change the 3, 2, 1. Tells you how to enlarge it, right? and here, right, this carefully split them up. But here I like to reinforce what they're doing carefully and how you feel about them in regard to a student attendance in your classes. Right? And split them up into 3 piles. Tend to disagree with, right? And then I usually put in here, right? Unlike me. Tend to agree with, right? Like me. And then pile for the rest. Blah, 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 blah. Right? And then we go and we hit continue. So this is just, again, the instructions. Right? Right? You're going to appropriate column based on your perspective. Right? Again, right? Regarding student attendance in your classes. I like to especially frame these things, right, so that they know it's about them personally. Right, here's my condition of instruction, right? Instead of agree, I'm going to have most like me, because this is just going to go on the top of the scale, right? Oh, sorry. Oh, no, that's right. Yeah. This is most unlike me. And make sure that you've done it all. That's in case they... And post-sort comments. Right, so placed on most like me. Placed on most unlike me. It's going to make them answer them all. Right? We've already put our questionnaire in a different file. Right? This just reminds them to answer all the questions. here we're ready to submit, right? You can still now close your, right? So, and goodbye. And all right, I think that's everything. So now we're going to save that to our language. So we're going to replace that file. And now we're going to go back to way back to the beginning and our setup. And so this to me is one of the really nice things is that we can test drive this before we go to all the work of configuring our database and uploading our website. So I'm going to make sure that everything works and that everything looks the way I want it to. Remember, I put some things in bold. I included extra lines. Notice that the BRs and the Bs don't appear. Here's my 100 participants. It was bold in my text in Word, but it's not bold here because I didn't make it bold using HTML. Right? So here, right here, I didn't turn off the bold, so it's both bold and italic. Right? Agree and 18 and over. Right? There it is again. Right? I can hit my start. Right? Here's my entrance, right? This is what it looks like. I put great effort into teaching, and it's disheartening when students don't attend, right? And, right, so I could sort all of these and make sure that everything works okay, right? I can't submit it to my database quite yet because I haven't set that up yet, right? But I always test drive it at this point just to make sure that everything is the way I want it. The landing page looks the way I want it to. The welcome page looks the way I want it to. All of those things. Notice again, I can make my text bigger, right, or smaller. And that's something that Sean shows in the video that opens this. So something good to remember. So I'm going to stop this video here. And then I'm going to go to the next part, which is setting up my Firebase and uploading my website. So I'm going to do that separately in a separate video.